Welcome to APCUG's Wednesday workshops, where we get together in the middle of the week, at the middle of the day, or early morning for some of you, and we talk tech. Today is the day before World Backup Day, and we are going to devote this whole workshop to backing up, all the way from why with Judy, all the way to Bill James with one way of doing his backups. Mark Schulman will be with us to do a major presentation on backing up, and Don Arrowsmith will be talking about a new backup program, totally new to me, and I'm going to really enjoy it because it's free. And we'll learn a lot, and then hopefully we'll learn some other options of backing up from those of you who are attending. At this time, we're going to go start with Judy Taylour with no really need for introductions. Everybody knows Judy. She's been with us every time we've done a workshop. And so as she has on hers backup day, we'll turn it over to her. And Judy, tell us about why we should be backing up. Unmute, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And remember, please, I need your first and your last name on your thumbnail picture. All you need to do is right-click on it and easily rename yourself. I might have 3 people and they all have the same name. And the one that doesn't have a last name, I have no clue which one you are. So thank you so much for that. It makes my life so much easier when I'm putting all the end stuff together. The question of the day is, do I really need to back up? And my answer is absolutely. When I give various presentations and there's ever an opportunity for me to say, now how many people are backing up? There are usually not many. And it's the same thing with password managers. How many people are using a password manager to make their life easier? And not that many hands go up. And the thing is, it truly does make your life easier. So it's World Backup Day tomorrow, and their motto is, don't be an April Fool. And I would hate to have anybody's hard drive die on April Fool's Day because it wouldn't be a joke. So you need to take the pledge. I solemnly swear to back up my important documents and precious memories on March 31st. If you don't back up, that might be the time for you to start. And we always like to share our information. So we're going to tell our friends and our family members, you know, it's World Backup Day. Are you guys backing up or not? And if they say no, then it's easy enough to let them know how. So why should I do it? Well, as far as I'm concerned, my data is more important than my computer. If my computer dies, I just go out and buy another one, but I cannot replace my data. And 21% of us still don't back up, even though we know absolutely we should. And I love this stat, 29% of data loss is caused by accident. And I'm wondering, is that the person between the chair and the computer, meaning us, accident? Thought that was interesting. I'm not going to talk about backing up your phone today, but in my presentation, when you get it, you will have the information about backing up your phone, because 113 phones are lost every single minute. World Backup folks say 30% of all computers have malware. A lot of people, you know, my hard drive, it's going to last forever. I'm sorry, I just don't have time to back up. And as Ron Papil said, set it and forget it. And once you set up your backup, you don't have to worry about it. The only thing you need to do is check it every once in a while to make sure that it is working correctly. Oh no, I have an antivirus program. That's going to take care of everything. You know, nobody's going to get into my computer and muck it up. So, you know, my data's okay. It's safe. Well, we need to think of data backup as one of those better safe than sorry precautions. We don't want to, you know, turn on our computers one day and absolutely nothing happens. And we feel like we want to get under our computer table and cry. So do you hear grinding noises? Do you hear beeps? Pay attention when you turn your computer on. Both times my hard drives have died, and I have had 2 die over the years. I got some beeps when I turned it on. And I asked one of my tech friends, and he and his wife were my brainstorming people for the Southwest Conference. He said, "Hey, Judy," he says, "turn it off, put the phone down there, turn it back on." And apparently any competent tech can tell by the beeps what's happening. And he said, "You know, kid, you got to get a hard drive because yours is on its way out." And we wouldn't know if it was going that day. 2 weeks from now, one of my son-in-laws was going to leadership camp at Santa Barbara, and he called me and he said, "You know," he says, "I'm about ready to leave." He says, "My hard drive's dying. Would you please take care of it?" His computer was 6 months old. So you never know when it's may happen. So they do. You can't get anything back. A boss is in the legal department, his hard drive died, and he went, "You know, all my legal stuff is on there." And I sent it off. We paid several $1,000s, and I got back 3 things that were garbled, and that was it. And he had lost everything. We can get viruses. They can erase data. The bad actors, they can get in somehow, but we say we do have that good antivirus program, but still, and they can take some of our unimportant data and put it all together, and all of a sudden our ID has been stolen. So a good backup strategy, which we all should have, and it's very easy to do, can make a big difference in our digital lives, and it can give us peace of mind. And CISA says best practices to minimize ransomware risks. We really don't want to be a victim of ransomware. So if we happen to be one, we should have backed up our data. We should have created a system image if we don't want to run out and buy a new computer. And again, please test your backups to make sure that they are working. And have one backup that is offline someplace else. Like you put it to an external hard drive and you give it to the people across the street to keep, or one of your kids or whatever, and then just grab it back when you use it again. So buzzwords, backing up, what does it mean? Well, it's a copy of the data stored on your hard drive, and what you often send it to an external hard drive. And that's just another storage device that you plug in with a USB cable, or you have your favorite cloud backup program, and many of us have just that. Online synchronization. Well, I got this definition last night, and I thought it was interesting, and it said you can think it's like, you know, the server in the cloud is like your local library. It's where all your files are stored. And when you want to use one, you just click on that in the cloud, you're checking it out, comes down, and you start working on it, revising it, whatever. And then when you save it again, it goes back up to the library in the cloud. I kind of thought that was cute. So a system image and a full backup, it takes a snapshot of everything on your hard drive as it exists right then. You can see all the things that it nicely backs up for you, all things that we don't want to have to download again. We don't want to set up things again, the whole 9 yards. You can look at a backup as something that if your computer dies, it's much easier to set up your new hard drive or your new computer if you have a backup. Data, to me, again, that's the most important aspect of my computer. It's got our pictures, our videos, our everything that is us is on our computer. I got a phone call one day from one of my son's best friends, and she said, Mrs. Taylour, she said, I have a question. She said, when I turned my computer on this morning, all I got was nothing. And I don't know why I thought of it, but I said, have you ever backed up anything? She'd never asked me how to, do it. And she said, I got one of those for Christmas, and I meant to ask you to come down and help me set it up. And they lost all of the pictures of their darling blonde-haired, blue-eyed daughters. And the only pictures they could have was things that my Randy sent them, their parents, friends, relatives. They all sent the pictures back to them that they had received from them. You really don't want that kind of thing to happen. There's incremental backups. That backs up the copies of your data that you changed since the previous backup, just plain old backup. Differential, all data changed since the last full backup you have done. I start with the full backup, and then I just use the incrementals. So how many photos do you take? This is just a statistic to say, look at that. How many people in the world take all these photos? What would happen if, poof, they all went away because nobody backed up? 3-2-1 rule. You need 3 different copies of your files saved in 3 different drives or locations, and 1 copy is your hard drive. And then you can have an external hard drive and in the cloud. And one is for at least 1 copy to be backed up off-site. That's my cloud. My cloud is in Calabasas, and it's two valleys west of me. And I have well, we haven't had an earthquake for a while, but I've been evacuated several times because of fires in the last couple of years. So if I don't need to take my computer with me, I just, I can take my external hard drive, unplug it, and throw it in my purse. But I have all of my data in Calabasas backed up. So you have to decide where you're going to back up to have it on your hard drive. You have a C drive or a D drive. If your data is on your D drive, that's the drive you're going to back up. If you want to back up all your programs, you have to back up your C drive too. That's just a snapshot of, I use numbers. Those are the folders that I open most frequently. So those are at the top of my list, and my list of folders goes on and on. I certainly want to make sure that I have all of my hard work backed up. So what did we back up in the day? Floppy disks. When I was putting my thesis together, I was paranoid that my hard drive would die, and I had it backed up on 2 floppies. That was way back in the day. Well, we use external hard drives, the cloud, and online synchronization. And plug your external hard drive in, you're good to go. I happen to like Seagate best. And please get a larger size than your internal hard drive. And how do you choose? Good Lord, what kind of backup, brand name, what? Well, one thing is ask your club members what they're using, learn about what people are using today, ask the question, is it easy to set up? Is it easy to use? Have you had any problems? So ease of setup, cost, and all those other bullet points. They're all important. To me, ease of setup is the name of the game. And your data and or image backups, well, you can use the Windows 7, 10, and 11 backup and restore. Easiest to do, I never know if it's Todo or To Do backup. A lot of people use that. Many people use Macrium Reflect Free 8. At our last World Backup Day, somebody mentioned Clonezilla, that they thought it was absolutely fantastic. So, you talk, you ask, and then you decide. In the cloud, Tom's guide, these are the exact same 3 he chose last year. iDrive Special is a few pennies less. Jean and Linda Barlow have a new program called Cypress Protect Home Office. It's just True Image with a new name. And he likes Backblaze. This is what happens when my iDrive backs up. When you do get a backup program, you need to make sure that you're notified that it actually worked if it's out in the world. So this is my iDrive, and it has all kinds of nice information. And as soon as it backs up, it pops up and lets me know whether it worked or not. Windows 7 is featured a lot with their backup and restore programs. And this popped up and said, wait a minute, as of the release for Windows 1.11.22 or the later ones, if you back up to a CD or a DVD, it just might not work. And oh gosh, Redmond is working on a fix that will be included in an upcoming release. And I thought, oh gosh, is that me? And I thought, no, I'm backing up to an external hard drive. So Windows 7, it's the old thing. It's not for your Windows 7 machine. It's for your 10, 11 machine, but they're still saying use this one. And there's screenshots on how to do it, how to find it, how to create a system image, your data. Windows 10, they have their own file history program, but they say, you know, you might want to use the Windows 7 image backup. So I guess Microsoft is going to keep that around for a while. And file history, you have different choices. You can back up every 10 minutes through daily. I back up daily, and I keep my stuff for 3 months. Forever, down in the lower right-hand corner, is the default. And that's the one you don't want, because all of a sudden you're not going to have any room left on your external hard drive if that's what you're using. And Windows 11, basically the same as Windows 10. You use this Windows 7 image backup, but it has own things. And I have links for all kinds of different things. And I am stopping to share, because all of those things make it extremely important for you guys to be backing up. Either every day like I do. I've backed up every day since I taught my tech classes because I didn't want to lose any of my curriculum. That's it, Mr. Kennedy. I am finished.
Good. And if you have questions for Judy's presentation, you can send them to her and she'll answer them later. And again, if you have questions for any of our presenters, send them to her. Don't send them to anybody else. They won't get read. All right, we're going to move on to kind of like what might be our keynote speech or presentation. Mark Schulman is going to be talking about backups in a busy world. And the focus is that given enough time, every hard drive eventually fails. Nobody gives you a guarantee. And most often that means all your photos, documents, videos, everything's lost. And recent evidence suggests that even under the best circumstances, hard drives don't last as long as previously thought. So backup's the only defense. So instead, listen to this presentation and develop some strategies. Mark Schulman's been with us before, but I want to, for all the people that are here, I'll let you know that he's from Central Florida Computer Society, one of the many speakers that come out of Florida. He's an author, speaker, web designer, software designer, and overall technology enthusiast, like a lot of us. He has designed software and web applications for small medical practices all the way up to Fortune 500 companies. He speaks on a wide variety of technology issues and is a published author of 7 computer books, including using Unix, understanding Unix, and using Lotus Notes, all published by Q, a division of Macmillan McGraw-Hill. He has spent his career as an instructor and software designer and has taught various programming courses for major corporations and worked on large software development projects. Mark currently manages the IT department for a small company that does clinical drug trials and the computers for a small medical practice. His major geek interest these days is the computer technology that made the moon landing possible back in 1960s, and he's currently working on building a reproduction of the Apollo guidance computer. I wonder how that's coming. So I'm going to turn things over now to Mark, and he's going to talk about this backup issue that Judy says is so important to all of us.
Thank you, John. So a lot of what my presentation is going to reinforce what Judy's told you. As you'd expect, we're going to start off with why backups are so important, and I'll throw in a couple of additional things that are going to reinforce what you heard from Judy. So let me see if I can share my screen. This is always the hard part. And hopefully that worked.
Got it.
Okay, yay. All right. Okay, we're going to talk about backups in a busy world, and my focus here is on why backups are important. Oh, well, first of all, let me talk to you a little bit about myself. I've been an IT professional for about 40 years, and the important thing is I'm going to mention some specific products, but I have no affiliation with any of these. These are just products that I've tried and I like. And I know so later this afternoon, some other people are going to talk to you about other products, and I'm hoping to learn about some good ones as well. So the two things I'm going to talk about is why do we need backups and some different techniques that you can use, and I'll tell you what I do and give you specifics about how I do my backups. So the problem, and Judy talked about this, is if you use them long enough, all hard drives will eventually fail. It's not a matter of if your hard drive is going to fail. It's just a matter of, will it get a chance to? Will you be using your computer long enough for the hard drive to fail? A while back, Backblaze, which is a backup company, now they have a vested interest in this statistic, but they published the paper, and I think it's honest. They have a data center with 41,000 hard drives in it, and they found that some models of hard drive had a 26% annual failure rate, which means that, and you can look in the paper and find out which manufacturers those were. And of course, it changes over the years. So maybe, Seagate went through a rough patch at one point, and then Western Digital goes through a rough patch at another point. So who's the most reliable can change from year to year. But what they found is that for some manufacturers, if you just looked at all the hard drives out of that 41,000 that were made by that manufacturer, each year you could expect a quarter of them to fail. So that's a really sobering statistic. Judy will have a copy of these slides, and there's a link at the bottom of the page where you can actually go read that paper. So there's lots of other ways you can lose your data besides just your hard drive failing. The whole computer can fail, of course, and that happens. You can accidentally delete something, and I'll tell you a story about that in just a second. You can have your computer lost or stolen, especially laptops. And this has never happened to me, but I know lots of people it happens to. And I work for an IT department, as John told you. I am the IT department for a couple of small companies. And every once in a while, someone will come to me and say, my laptop got stolen. So then I've got to worry about, can I get them their data back? Is it all backed up? And of course, usually the answer is yes. The thing you have to worry about that nobody wants to think about is fire or flood that can actually destroy where the computer is located. And unfortunately, in some cases, it can destroy your backup as well. We have to worry about malware. And Judy talked about ransomware, and I hope none of you have ever seen it, but probably some of you have. This is a typical screen that you're going to see when you get malware. When you get ransomware. It's telling you that all your files have been encrypted, and if you don't send them, in this case, $300 in 3 or 5 days, whatever it is, you're going to lose all your files. And sending them the money will usually get you your files back, but for companies, this can be a lot more. And every once in a while, I read in the paper, and it just breaks my heart. You hear that some company has paid $1 million to get their files back after ransomware struck their servers. So it can really be critical. And the only real defense against ransomware, the only one that actually works, is keeping backups. So think about how you'd feel if you lost all of your data, all your documents, photos, videos, letters, spreadsheets, financial documents. I know that, and I've mentioned this many times, if my house caught fire and burned to the ground, as long as the people and the animals are out safe, the only thing I've got that's really irreplaceable are these things right here. And the answer is backups. So if you're not making backups and some sort of tragedy strikes, you might get lucky, because if the computer has failed but the hard drive is okay, then you can get a device that looks like this, and you can take the hard drive out of the computer, and you can probably fish all your data off the hard drive. And depending on whether or not you know somebody like me that's got one of these, could cost nothing, could cost you a couple $100 if you have to hire a computer shop to do it for you. You might get sort of lucky that even if the hard drive is damaged, there are companies that will try to fish your data off for you, but they're very expensive and it's very specialized work. You have to send the hard drive off, and if you're lucky, after a few weeks and potentially thousands of dollars, they may be able to get your data back. It's so much easier to make backups. And sometimes your luck just runs out. And if there's been a fire near your computer, your hard drive is just trashed, and there's no way you're going to get any data off of it. So let's talk about backups and how to make them, what techniques you can use. So backup is just a copy of your data, and it's an ongoing process. If we never changed our data, then we could just take a couple snapshots of it and store it someplace safe, and we'd be done. But that's not the way my life works. I'm constantly writing new documents, creating new spreadsheets, and so backups have to be something that I do over and over and over again. So I would say most people don't do backups. Judy had a statistic that said 26%, I think. I'm surprised that it's that high of people who don't do it. I would have thought it was kind of the reverse. Maybe 26% of the people do backups and the rest don't. And just nothing else will take the place of a backup. And here's a quote I ran across quite a few years ago, and I love this, and it's become a guiding principle in my computer life. If you don't make backups, you don't own your files. You're just borrowing them from fate. If you're at it long enough, if you're not making backups, you'll eventually lose everything, given long enough. So it's just really important. And I'll tell you quick, so there have been many times in my life when backups have saved my bacon. And I'll just tell you about the most recent one that I know of, and it's a quick 45-second story. So I use a piece of software called Calibre, and it's a book cataloging program, and I love to read. And I use Calibre not only to keep track of books that I own, but books that I've read in the past that I didn't own. Maybe I got them out of the library. And I also use it to keep track of books that I want to read. So when I'm trying to decide what I want to read next, I just go into Calibre and tell it to show me all the books that I've entered that I might want to read. And then I pick what I want to read next. And I either go buy it or get it from Kindle Unlimited or whatever, however I'm going to get it, check it out of the library, whatever. And so I love Calibre. And one of the things it allows you to do is to categorize your books by genre. And I do that, and I've got thousands of books listed in there, and I carefully catalog, are they history, nonfiction, are they science fiction, fantasy, romance, computer books, what are they? And I had just entered a list. I'd gotten an email from a company that sends me lists of books I might want to read, and I had just entered about 20, 25 books. And they were all science fiction. So I selected all 25 of them, and I was going to categorize them as science fiction. And I didn't realize it, but somehow I had managed to select all 2,500 books in my catalog had been selected, and I changed them all to science fiction. And boy, that was an oh shoot moment. And it would have taken me weeks to recatalog them all back to the correct genre. And it would have been boring work. Well, I went over, grabbed one of my backup hard drives, and put everything back the way it was. So that wasn't losing all my files, and it wasn't even losing all my book data, but it was losing a crucial component of the data that I had. And it was just so easy. It was 10 minutes to go get the backup drive, put all the files back, and then do it properly the second time around. So I am such a big believer in backups. So the ideal backup is going to be convenient, reliable, secure, and inexpensive. And especially with consumers, these are the things that we're interested in. Now, when I plan for backups at work, these are not necessarily the same goals that I've got at work, because I don't really care if it's convenient, because it's somebody's job to do it. And whether it's convenient or not, you know, they have to do it. But mostly at work, what I care about is we have to have the ability to get back up and running as quickly as possible. And we don't care about the inexpensive quite so much, because we're willing to spend thousands of dollars to make sure that we can get back up and running very quickly. But for consumers, these are usually the priorities. So Judy talked about this, and it's worth reiterating, the 3-2-1 rule. And we're going to talk about this quite a bit, and I'm going to tell you how I satisfy this rule. So for consumers, at least, this is crucial. Now, again, at work, we go way beyond this, because our data, we're keeping people's medical records. We cannot lose that data. So we're a lot more serious about this. But for consumers, this is the rule. So you want to have 3 copies of your data. Everything you own should have should exist in 3 different places. It should be on at least 2 different media. So you don't want to put everything on hard drives or everything online or et cetera. You want to find 2 different kinds of places to put your data. And finally, and this is crucial, one of them needs to be off-site. Because again, if my house burns to the ground, and assuming the people are out safe, I'm going to be worried about my data. And if my computer burned up and all my backups burned up as well, then the backups got me nothing. So it's important that at least one of the backups not be where your computer is. So I'll show you a couple ways I get around that. So a couple different ways you can do backups to flash drive or external hard drive. And this is probably the most common, or at least it was until recently. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that all our important files are copied to a flash drive or external hard drive, these days usually an external hard drive. And it's easiest to do with synchronization software. Now, theoretically, you could do this with just a Windows copy, but that's way too much trouble. So what kind of software can you use for this? Synchronization software looks for things that have changed and updates the copy to reflect those changes. So I do my backups once a week to hard drive, and over that week, not very many files actually change. Maybe 100 files actually get modified out of my, gosh, I don't know, 150,000 files or however many there are. So the only thing I really need to copy is just the ones that have changed. And some of my favorites, and I actually use all of these. Free File Sync is what I use on my laptops. Good Sync happens to be what I use on my desktop computer. And the only reason I used Good Sync, I actually paid for that one. It has a couple of features that are applicable to my job that Free File Sync wouldn't do. But for regular backups, Free File Sync is great. And as the name implies, it's free. They will take donations. And then there's another program called SyncBack, and that's actually what we use at work. It's a really robust synchronization. There's a free version, but to get all the bells and whistles, it costs a little bit of money, but it's not expensive. So let me show you a demo. We're going to use Free File Sync, and I'm going to show you how I would set up a backup and then what a weekly backup would look like. Oh, I still need to share my screen. Sorry. I don't know why I thought you needed to see me for that. Okay, so I've got an external hard drive plugged in, and it's my G drive, and it's already got some directories on it. I'm going to leave those as they are. And on my laptop, all of the stuff I want to back up is in this directory, which I've cleverly labeled Mark. That's my name. So that's the stuff I want to back up. So I'm going to run a program called Free File Sync, and we're going to pretend like I've never used this before. So this is what it looks like when it comes up, except it remembered what I did last time, so it's actually got some stuff already filled in. So I'm going to browse for the directory that I want to back up. and it's on my E drive, which is actually my hard drive, and I want to back up the Mark directory. And then on the G drive, I'm going to put my backups in a directory called G backups. And so I'm going to expect that, actually, you know what? I'll just change that. I'm going to call it, since it reflects the original name, I'll call it G/Mark. Okay, so now I'm going to tell it to analyze the drive. And so I'm going to click the Analyze button. And it tells me that the G/Mark directory doesn't exist, so I'll tell it to go ahead and create it. And it comes up with a list of all the files that are in the directory I want to back up, but not in the directory that I'm backing up to. And in fact, there's 1,800 files that need to be copied. And you'd expect that to be all of them because this is the first time I've done this. So I'm going to tell it to synchronize. And again, it tells me there's 1.65 gigabytes, 1,817 files that need to be copied. And I'll tell it to do it. And it'll just take it a few seconds. And it draws you this little graph of the progress it's making. Nice to have something to look at while it's doing it. And it's done. So now if I go look on my G drive, I see that it created a directory called Mark. And if I look in that directory, there's all my stuff. Now, suppose I then, over the following week, I make a bunch of changes. So let me go into my hard drive, and I'm going to go into my study directory. And one of the things I like reading about is mountain climbing. So I'll go into there, and I've got a couple documents in a spreadsheet. And let's say I edit this document. And gosh, I don't know. I'm just going to make one little change to this document. That's all it takes. And I'll save that. And then I'm going to create a document. So I'm going to create a new Word document called Interesting Facts. And we'll edit that and just put a little bit of stuff in it. And I'll save that. Okay, so now it's a week later, and I'm going to run Free File Sync again. And this time I hit the Analyze button. And it says there's only 2 files that have changed. They're both in the mountain climbing directory, Study Mountain Climbing. It's these 2 files. And it's telling me, it's got the little plus next to the arrow there. It's telling me that that's a new file. And the other file doesn't have a plus in it, so it's telling me that means it's just changed, but it exists in both places. And I just say synchronize, and it says, okay, we're going to copy 2 megabytes. We're adding 1 file and then updating 1 file, and I say start, and bam, done. And that's about how fast it usually goes. So it makes it very, very easy to do backups. Okay. So there's lots of specialized software for doing backups. One that we use at work is called Aomi Backupper. I love that name. I've used it at home a couple of times. I'm not currently using it, but it's what we use at work, and it has a free version and a paid version. Because of some specialized things we have at work, we have to use the paid version, but for the vast majority of consumers, the free version is all you need, and it's really nice. So let me show you what that looks like. So I'm going to run Aomi. And I tell it I want to do a backup. Now, if I hadn't already configured it, I would just say that I want to do file backup, and I give it the directory that I want to back up. So I want to back up the Mark directory. And oh, I haven't set this up in a long time. Like I said, I don't use it much. And I'm missing something. I'm not going to try to figure it out in front of you. So like I said, this is what we use at work, but you just set it up once and you forget it. I've forgotten why I'm missing something, obviously. Okay, well, if I just concentrated on it for a second, I could figure it out. The hard part of doing live demos. But anyway, when I put in the parameter I'm missing and hit start backup, it would just take all those files and go out to the hard drive and create a backup of them. And it works great. Okay, a couple of points about this. If you're going to back up to hard drive, have at least 2 backup hard drives and alternate between them. I actually use 3. The more hard drive backups you have to back up to, the better off you are. At work, we use 5 of them. And the reason for that is the worst feeling in the world is to realize that you need to go to your backup and get some files off of it and find out that unbeknownst to you, your backup hard drive has gone bad. So you always want to have multiple. There was another quote, and I don't know the exact quote, so I didn't put it in the presentation, but it is, when you go to use when you come to depend on your backup, it's your last hope. And that's typically the case. You've already lost files, you've already had your laptop stolen or whatever, and you're depending on your backup. So that's why we have that 3-2-1 rule. You want multiple copies of stuff in case one of the copies is bad. Store the external drives as physically apart from your computer as possible. So I keep my backup hard drives in a room on the opposite side of the house. There's no computers over there, but my hope is that if there is ever a fire and my computer gets destroyed in a fire, if it doesn't burn the entire house to the ground, then maybe those backup hard drives on the other side of the house will survive as well. So that's kind of another half-hearted way of doing the make sure one is off-site. Now, I'll show you how I really do that in just a minute, but don't keep your, I see people do this all the time. They've got backup hard drives, and where are they? Well, they're sitting on top of the computer. Well, if the computer catches fire, there goes your backups as well. So don't do that. And be sure to find a way to schedule your backups. It doesn't do any good to come up with a plan to do backups and then not do it. That's like me and going to the gym. I belong to a gym, but if I never go, it doesn't do me any good. So be sure, whether you have a calendar or alarms on your phone or whatever, be sure you schedule your backups at the proper time. So we talked about hard drives. Judy said she likes Seagate. Seagate's fine. I'm a Western Digital guy. They've got a model right now called the Elements Portable, and there's some recent prices that I got about 2 months ago on Amazon. So I bought 3 of these. So it cost me about $300 to buy backup hard drives. So I didn't think that was too awfully bad, and I'm all set, I hope. So advantages and disadvantages to this. First of all, it's fast and it's easy. You saw with Free File Sync how easy it was. The disadvantages to this is if all your backup hard drives are at your house, you're going to be susceptible to fire or flood. And I live in a state that gets flooded a lot. And you have to remember to do them. And I have no problem doing that. I do it. It's one of the things I do every Sunday is do my backups. But for a lot of people, just remembering to make the backups is difficult. So strategy number 2, and again, Judy talked about this a little bit, is to use a cloud storage service to keep some of your files. And here are the most popular ones. I currently use OneDrive. At work, we use Dropbox, and I know lots of people that use Google Drive. I've been looking at one called APCUG, and I like them a lot and considering switching. So here are some prices for them and what you get. So if you have a really small amount of data, they'll give you some storage for free. But for some of them, you may, if you're backing up all your files, you probably are going to have to pay. So there are some prices, and you can see that OneDrive is the cheapest, but only gives you 1 terabyte. And so Google Drive's about $100 a year. That's what a lot of people do. Dropbox, $120. APCUG, $96 per year. But here's the thing that's interesting about APCUG. You can get a lifetime. subscription. So I think it's $350. So if you give them $350, which is less than what you'd pay normally in 4 years, you get 2 terabytes forever. So I kind of like that model. I'm considering doing that. One thing to be aware of is, and you've been warned, do not depend on online storage as your only backup. All of the, so what's TOS? If you're a Star Trek fan, it stands for the original series, but in this case, it stands for terms of service. All of these online storage facilities will tell you that if they lose all your files, they'll apologize, but that's it. They're not a backup service in and of themselves. And I was looking at the OneDrive terms of service not very long ago, and it's in there that they'll do everything they can to keep your files safe, but if they lose them, they have no liability. And that's one of the things you agree to when you sign up with them. So online services are a great way to be one of your backup options, but it shouldn't be your only one. The third one I'm going to talk about is online backup services. And online backup services are software that runs on your PC, watches for files to change, and then as soon as it sees files change, it copies them up to the backup service in the cloud. And all your data is encrypted, so they're secure. And there are some free ones that will give you a small amount of data for free. And what they're hoping is that you'll upgrade. But in most cases, most people, if you're going to back up all your data, you're going to have to get the paid version. So that's what I'm going to talk about. And a lot of these plans will allow you to back up multiple computers. So in my house, gosh, there's 2 of us, and we've got a total of 4 computers, maybe 5 computers. So here are some of the common online backup services right now, how many computers they'll support. So iDrive will allow you to back up as many computers as you have, but you're limited to 5 terabytes of storage. Now that's a lot of storage, and it's less than $60 per year. The others, you have to pay for each computer, and there's the prices, but you can have as much data as you want for each computer. The one I really love here, and it's not the one I have right now, is CrashPlan. CrashPlan is fantastic, and I think they do the best job of any of these, but you'll also notice they're the most expensive. They have kind of reoriented themselves towards businesses, and businesses are willing to pay a little bit more money than consumers are. There's no reason a consumer can't use them. They're perfectly adequate. They just happen to be a little more expensive than the others. So advantages and disadvantages to online backups. They're very easy. You pretty much just set it up and make sure every once in a while, as Judy mentioned, make sure they're still working. But I used to get, when I had CrashPlan, I remember I'd get an email from them every night saying, you know, here's what we backed up and here's how much we backed up, and, you know, you're all up to date. So it was very comforting getting that email. It is an offline or an off-site backup, so you're immune to fire and flood. Your house can burn to the ground and your backup service still has all your files. And the thing I love so much about them is it has versioning, which is to say, and by the way, Free File Sync can do this as well. Suppose I modify a file, and I've done this. You modify a file and you don't realize you've deleted a whole bunch of stuff that you didn't mean to delete, and you save it and it gets backed up. Well, now the backup version has that data is missing as well. But what you can do with all of these backup services is you can say, I need this file the way it was 4 days ago. And they will have a copy of it for as far back as you can imagine. They typically go back years. So you can pick any date and they can show you what the file looked like on that date. And that's really useful. Disadvantages, they all entail an ongoing cost. The initial backup can take days or even over a week. When I had iDrive for a while, and when I did the initial backup, it took 8 days for it to upload all of my files to the cloud. And similarly, a restore can take days. So if your computer burned up and you replaced your computer and now you want to put all your files on it, it's got to download all of your data, and that can take days. Okay, and the last thing I want to talk about is system backups. And a system backup, and I only do this once every 6 months. So what a system backup is, you take your entire hard drive and you make a copy of it. And that includes Windows and everything else. So on a weekly basis, I only back up my data. And I have certain folders where that data resides, and that's what I back up. But if I lost my computer, or if I had to replace my hard drive, that's actually the more realistic scenario. If I had to replace my hard drive, I don't want to have to reinstall all of my programs and install Windows 10 from scratch and start all over again. It's nice to be able to take a copy of my hard drive the way it existed within the past few months and just put it all back the way it was. So some popular programs that will do this, Macrium Reflex is the one I use, and I absolutely love it. And there is a free version and a paid version. And as before, I use the free version at home. It's perfectly adequate for consumers. At work, we back up servers, so we have to use the paid version, but that's okay. And Aomi Backupper, the one I just showed you a minute ago that I fumbled with a little bit, can also take your entire C drive and make a backup of it. And again, the free version will do that just fine. The resulting file is really big, which is why you don't want to do this every week, because it winds up producing these enormous files. And one thing that you have to be careful of, you have to create what's called a rescue flash drive, which is a copy of the program that can boot from a flash drive, because if you put a brand new empty hard drive in it, you can't even boot from that hard drive. So you need this flash drive that's just smart enough to boot your computer, run Aomi or Macrium, and then go get your backup and restore it. So it's really important that you not only keep the backup, but that you also keep the rescue flash drive. Okay, I'm not going to do a demo of that. The last thing I want to talk about as far as backups are phones. And this is the one that people frequently forget. And usually what we're talking about on phones is your photos. I take photos on my phone just like everybody else does. Now, I actually still have a real camera, but I use if I'm just taking snapshots of people that I went out to dinner with, I don't lug my big SLR with me. I just take pictures on my phone, and that works out just fine. I have met so many people where their photos are on their phone, and that's the only place they exist. And, you know, on the surface, what are you going to use to show people photos? Well, you're going to show it to them on your phone. So that seems to be okay, but it's really not. Your photos shouldn't exist only on your phone. And do we have to explain why this is? All of us have either lost a phone, broken a phone, or know somebody that's broken or lost a phone. And if your phone gets damaged or lost or stolen, it's bad enough you have to worry about paying hundreds of dollars to replace it. The last thing you should have to worry about is that, oh no, there went all my photos, years and years of photos. So you can put apps on your phone that will back up your phone automatically. If you have an Apple phone, you can use iCloud to do that. It'll take all your photos, put them up on iCloud. And OneDrive has got an app on either iOS or Android. And just every time you take a photo, every time you take a photo, sorry, I'll get it together here. Every time you take a photo, it uploads it to OneDrive. So I know my files, my photos are safe on OneDrive. And then occasionally, usually about once a month, I'll take all the photos that have been uploaded to OneDrive, and I'll also put a copy of them on my computer, and then that gets backed up along with all the files on my computer. So have a strategy for what you're going to do with photos on your phone. If there's any other important data you keep on your phone, then again, you should have some strategy to back those up. In my case, it happens that there's nothing I keep on my phone that's not replaceable easily, other than the photos. So a couple final thoughts. First of all, I want to talk about what I do as a backup. So I've thought a lot about this, and I have settled on something, and it's always still evolving, and this is what I do. So first of all, every Sunday, I back up all of my files to one of 3 external hard drives, and I use GoodSync. Free file sync would work just as well. And this is how I satisfy the 3 copies. So at any time, all of my files exist on my computer, and they get backed up to one of 3 external hard drives. And I rotate that every week. So any new file I created within 3 weeks is on all 3 of the backup hard drives. Every Monday, I take one of those hard drives to work, and I put it in my desk at work. And that's how I get the one off-site of the 3-2-1 rule. So if my house burns to the ground, there's always that hard drive at work that's a recent backup. So here's what my backup hard drives look like. I've got nice cases for all of them, and there's a number on the front of each case, 1, 2, or 3. And then if you open it up, there's my little Western Digital hard drive in it. It's got my name and phone number on it, and it's also labeled, says backup 1 on this one. And then I just have a little piece of paper that sits with the hard drives, and it's my backup log. And it tells me each week what backup drive am I supposed to use to do the backup, which one am I supposed to take to work, and which one should be at work that I'm supposed to bring back home. And then, so every Monday, I go to work with, this week, Monday. This past Monday, I went to work, I did my backup to hard drive number 3, I took hard drive number 2 to work, and I brought hard drive number 1 home from work. And this has worked really well for me. So what else do I do? Important files are also stored on OneDrive. And everything on OneDrive is also backed up onto my external hard drive. That's how I get the 2, oh, sorry, that one's not showing. That's how I get the 2 different media. So all of my important files are backed up onto hard drive, and they're also stored on OneDrive. And then every 6 months, I use Macrium Reflect to take an image of all my hard drives. And that way, if I lose my Windows hard drive, I can just get a new hard drive, and I've got a copy that's not terribly old. I might have to reinstall a couple of applications, but mostly I'll be good to go. And finally, on my phone, I use OneDrive to back up all my photos. So the last piece of advice I'll give you is whatever you do for backups, just do it. Even if you don't satisfy all the rules, have a backup strategy. Try to make it robust enough that it meets the 3-2-1 rule, and just make sure you're backing up. Because I've had several instances in my life where I would have lost significant amounts of data, or even all of it, if I hadn't had hard drives. If I hadn't had backups. So just do it. And that's it. If you have any questions, we'll get a chance to ask questions here in just a second. And you're also perfectly welcome to email me anytime. So thanks.
Terrific. Really great, easy to follow steps for all of us. Judy.
Hey, outstanding. Thank you so much. If one decides to go with iDrive, they will send you an external hard drive, and you can do your initial backup on that and then send it back to them. It is free. They will do that once a year if you want. Don't forget, don't keep your external hard, don't do what I do. It's one of those mother things, do as I say, not as I do. But don't leave your external hard drive plugged in all the time, because if you get hit with ransomware, it can go right over to your external hard drive and take care of that too. Crash Plan Mark, I thought it was the best thing that came down the pike. I was at CES or Comdex, whenever they came out, and they offered those of us who were there yet chatting with them a free program when they launched. They hadn't even launched yet. I used it for years, and then they went over to the business mode and said, bye-bye. And I felt so bad because, like you said, it was absolutely fantastic. So I have a couple of your file sync questions. So I'll ask those and then we can get the general ones later. How do you restore the info that Free Files Sync records?
Oh, so if you lost everything, how would you have to put it back? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yeah, so the interesting thing is, all you do is you reinstall the app and then you would set it up with the same hard drives. The way I have mine set up, it's a bidirectional synchronization, which is the default. And what that means is, if you put an empty directory out there on your new hard drive and you just run it again, it'll go in the opposite direction. It'll say, wow, you've got an empty directory on your hard drive and I've got all these files on the backup drive. You want me to put them back? And it'll just do it. So the restore is really easy. It's exactly the same process. It can tell, where the files are and where they're not.
Does Free File Sync make a complete copy of the changed file, including videos?
Yes, it does. So, and you can set it, and I do this, you can set it to do versioning, which means behind the scenes, it's actually keeping every copy up to some limit that you can set. So I have it set to keep the last 10 versions. So yeah, for a really active file, documents that I'm getting in and editing over a long period of time, there'll be one complete copy, and then behind the scenes, there are 9 more copies of the file as it's changed each time.
And will you please explain the difference between backup software and synchronization software?
It's really just how you use it. So Free File Sync is synchronization software. So if you're using it to synchronize your regular hard drive with a backup hard drive, then just think of it as backup software. That's what it is, because you're not using the hard drive for anything other than keeping backups. But for example, at work, I use this so that I work on several different computers and I want them to all have the same files. So if I'm working on computer A and now I want to go over to computer B, I'll run Free File Sync and it'll look at the differences and it'll make sure that anything I've done on A is now moved over to B. And then I go work on B a little bit and then I'll run it again. And anything I've done on B gets pushed back over to A. And so that's really more the synchronization rather than the backup version. But it's the same software.
Very good. Over to you, John.
Okay, making notes. All right. We'll have some more time to ask ask Mark questions a little bit later. Now we're going to move on to Don Smith, and backup is a single most important thing you can do. I think we're getting that point across. And you can do that to migrate computer software or to mitigate computer hardware and software. So Don's going to start by listing the threats he needs to prepare for, and then show what means in terms of backup app requirements. He settled on using Veeam Agent for Microsoft Windows, one that's new to me. This free for home use is seldom mentioned in articles, and I can confirm that I haven't heard of it, but it's the perfect solution for most of us. So he'll give a quick review of its features. Now, Don first used his first computer in 1961, a Bendix G15, which had a whole whopping 2 kilobytes of rotating drum memory. Wow. He has a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering from Lehigh and is retired from working on a U.S. Navy facility that collected data from aircraft engines via computers. He's taught algebra at 2 colleges, is a past APCUG advisor for Region 3, and is currently president of the Philadelphia Area Computer Society. And he maintains several websites that he hand-coded in PHP and MySQL. So Don, I'm going to turn things over and I'm anxious to hear about this new program.
Yeah, well, it's not exactly a new program. It's been around for a while. Let me do some screen sharing here.
Definitely new to me.
You can see that, John?
You got it.
Okay. So Veeam Agent for Windows is something you've probably not heard of. Veeam is a European company, and they have mostly enterprise customers. They make their many of their products available for free for home use. So just a little background. I used to use Windows Home Server as a network attached storage here in my home, and it also had just a wonderful backup process. And I would still be using it if Microsoft hadn't decided to stop supporting it. But when that time came, I had to look around. I ended up with another network attached storage, which is now called TrueNAS Core. I gave a APCUG presentation on that, and it is limited to storage. It does not have built-in backup process. So I had to look for a replacement for my former backup process. And I decided to first think about what I wanted to do. And I made, let me get over here. Okay, I made this chart of what I want to protect against, and then use that to develop a requirement for the backup software. So this first group here, theft, fire, flood, electrical problem, or just a plain old hard drive failure, what they have in common is that the drive that was existing is either gone or it's non-functional, and you'll need a new drive. And to restore that, you need an image backup of that drive. The second group, if it's caused by ransomware or malware or some kind of a gross operator failure, is similar to the first, except that the drive is physically functional. And what we need to get back to feeling good again was just to format that working drive and restore it from an image backup. The last group, which could happen because of operator error or maybe a failure in Windows Update or some other app went crazy, the operating system is still working, the file system is intact, the drive is functional, of course, and we just need to restore individual folders or files. And so I took that and came up with requirements. So what I'd like to have my backup software do is produce a backup format that can be used to either restore files, folders, or entire volumes. A lot of programs can do it one way or another way, but that means you have to schedule probably 2 different apps or whatever to get the 2 different flavors. I also wanted to be able to do a bare metal restore, meaning I had to put a new hard drive into my computer by booting from a rescue disk or a USB drive. I wanted the software to have a scheduler in there so it would run automatically and not require my feeble brain to try to remember to do it. And it would be nice if it used some methods to reduce the storage requirements, either allowing incremental or differential backups rather than just full backups. Maybe it could do compression of the backup or deduplication. Deduplication meaning don't put a second copy of a file or a block there that it already had. And this would reduce the storage requirement and make a fixed size last longer in terms of backups. Some other considerations, I needed to remember to do a periodic test of each restore type so that when I really, really needed it, I knew that it would work. It's desirable to have this storage medium offline when it's not active so that it can't get encrypted by ransomware. Mark and Judy has mentioned this as considerations. I also needed to think about how many backups I want to save and for how long to figure out the size of the backup storage area. Now I'm going to be storing this on my network attached storage for the most part. But I'll mention that that also has a job that runs on it overnight and copies changed files up to OneDrive. I also have 3 hard drives, external hard drives that I save. I do them in order, as Mark mentioned, and I have them stored in a fire safe here in the same room. He wouldn't be happy with that, but it is rated for an hour's worth at 1800 degrees or something. It's made by First Alert, and it was, I think, about $150 when I bought it from Amazon. It weighs a ton, but they had free shipping, so there we are. The last consideration I wanted is free is good, so that I got extra points if it was free. So I looked at a lot. I had used Acronis earlier before I got the Windows Home Server, but I eventually settled on Veeam. So, so I said Veeam is at veeam.com. They mostly market to enterprises, but they make a lot of products available for free for home use. And since I'm running 3 Windows machines here, 2 desktops and a laptop, I wanted their Veeam Agent for Microsoft Windows free. It is free and it does everything that I needed. So as far as getting it, if you go to their website and then click on downloads here, and then move down, and you can see Veeam Agent for Microsoft Windows free is right here. Now, this is the download link. You'll see at this page that they make an agent for Linux free available also. I do not back up a Linux machine, so I didn't need that. I do not have a Mac. They have a Mac product, but I don't believe they have a free version. I'm not sure how much the paid version is, but if you have a Mac, you might want to investigate that. And also on this same page, don't get confused by this Veeam Backup and Replication product. That is a piece of software that runs on pretty much a dedicated machine that will control and manage these agents on other machines. For their enterprise customers, this is what they basically use to take care of and manage all the individual computers for their employees. You could do this. I think this version, Community Edition, runs up to 10 individual workloads, but for my purposes, I only needed this, and probably you too. As far as documentation, if you go to their support link up here at the top, and then scroll down and see on the, it's almost at the bottom on the right, technical documentation. If you click on that, and then use this drop down to get the Veeam Agent for Microsoft Windows, you can download a user guide in PDF, and that'll tell you everything you want to know and more. Now, if you have a problem, they have an active community forum session where you can make an account and post problems up there, and there are people that are very helpful and will be happy to help you work it out. A lot of Veeam people monitor that too, and will give you the real scoop. All right, so once you've loaded it, and what you want to do is set up a backup job. So There's an icon that sits in your system tray in the bottom right. If you click on that, you can go through and set up a backup job. So we're going to go and do that, and it's comes up with this wizard format. The first screen lets you name the backup, so you should give it something that's descriptive. When you click next, you come up to the backup mode. So you can see we have 3 different modes here: file level, volume level, entire computer. That's what's recommended. That's what I use. If I had this include external USB drives checked, it would back up from a connected USB drive on my computer, but I don't normally keep one connected all the time. Clicking next gets to this destination screen, and you can see that you could go to OneDrive or OneDrive for Business. You could go to a VM backup repository. This is using that backup and replication product that's in your local network, or again, if you were an enterprise, that would be the person that's managing your computer backups for you. You could choose local storage. This would be an attached USB hard drive or USB flash drive. Since I have my network attached storage available, I've chosen shared folder. I'll click next. I'll pick that folder. My TrueNAS is on a machine called Corey, and I'm going to store these backups from Berman, which is the desktop I'm running now, into a directory called Berman underneath backups on Corey. It needs credentials. I'm going to check this and put in my login credentials. And before I go on, you can set how long you want to keep your backups for. Now, that says 90 days. You can set that to whatever you want. I think it turns out to be 90 backups, actually. So it could be longer than 90 days. And again, before I click next, I'm going to click on Advanced here. And you get to this screen. And under the Backup tab, I'll check this to say, create an active full backup periodically, and I'm going to do it every Saturday. There's some other options in there. We don't need to look at those now. But back to that schedule screen, which we got from the shared screen, and then click next, we can set up our normal schedule. And I've selected daily at 12:30 p.m. every day of the week. Now, when Saturday rolls around, that other setting is going to take over and make it a full backup, but the other days of the week, it's going to be an incremental backup. You can see you have other choices here. If the computer's off, we'll just skip it. Once you've taken the backup, you could have it set to shut down. You could choose at the time you lock it as you log off, or when you disconnect the target. But we'll click Apply and see the next screen gives us a summary. We're going to make a backup daily. We're going to keep it. We're going to store it there. We're going to do burn and so on. And when we click Finish, it's now going to do the schedule. So again, if I click that little icon in the taskbar, this screen comes up and it shows us a history of the last 7 backups. Now, I ran this screenshot on a Tuesday, and I can tell you it was about at 5:30 at night, because it's saying that 5 hours ago, it did a backup. 1 day ago, which would have been Monday, 2 days ago, which would have been Sunday, 3 days ago would have been Saturday, and you can see that's when we did the full backup. The rest of them are incrementals, and they're a lot smaller. If you click on these indicators at the bottom, these are links, and it will give you some details on that particular backup. So I'm going to click on this one, and it'll show us what we did. We did a backup of Berman. It only took 2.5 minutes, its total size was 3.61 gigabytes. And this is what the details were. So it backed up 2 recovery disks, an EFI partition, and then our C drive. Our C drive is 128 gigabytes, of which C partition is 106. We read 17 gigs off of it, this and blah, blah, blah. And it finished off at 12:32:29. So it started 12:30. Again, as it says, it only took 2.5 minutes. At this point, we could restore files or restore volumes from that. Let's look over on my network attached storage device, which I mentioned to you is called Quarry. And I'm going to look in the backups folder. This is Bugsy. This is another desktop that I have. And this is a list of all the files that are on there. Now, VIB extension is for incremental backups. BBK are full image backups. And you can see that the full ones are a lot different size, bigger size than the incrementals. We can restore from the file level. When we do that, we get another wizard. If we move down to this restore point, we can pick which particular backup we want to restore from. And it's shown in reverse order. If I wanted to restore it from this April 18th, it would use the incremental from then, as well as the full from the 17th. If I wanted to restore from Friday the 16th, it would use all these incrementals plus this full backup. And once you've selected by clicking on the point you want and click next, it gives you a summary of what's going to happen. And if you clicked open, it would then get you to what looks like a file browser screen. It's not in Windows Explorer, it's a built-in browser. And you can move through C drive. Again, this one happens to be a restore from Berman. You can move down there on the original folder structure to get where you want. I wanted to get a file called bdf2gdn font.bat from the Perl directory in there. And you can select this. You can use control click to select multiple files along with that. And once you click start at the bottom of the page, it'll, here we are, restore up here. Once you click restore to, it will go and put that back where it came from. If you need to do a volume level or an image restore, you get a similar wizard here. Again, you can pick a restore point, and it could be from any incremental or full backup, and it will restore to that disk that the ones you've chosen. When I click next here, I'm going to say from the previous one, when I click next, it's going to give us a choice of which partitions to recover just by clicking these little boxes here. And it'll go through and do the restore. It's very quick, you know, relative to having a panic attack and, you know, starting from scratch. We're talking about maybe a half an hour or something like that. Full backups from Berman take about 15 minutes. So it's very time conscious. There's also a settings available, and if we click on that, we can get some other choices now. One I'm going to concentrate on today is enable email notifications. This lets you get an email sent to you under different conditions. So I put an address in there, a password, a subject line in there, and I can choose to be notified whenever I have an error or a warning show up in the backup process, or I can click success and get one every time it runs. So I assume that it's going to be successful unless I get one of these. So I'm happy to not get 3 emails additional every day that say it worked. So one thing you should do as soon as you install the program is create recovery media. This will be an image that you can use to recover from a complete drive failure. And it will show you what you can store that recovery media on. I happen to have a DVD drive installed. It will write directly to a blank disk, or you can write to an ISO file. Generally, that's what I do. And then I copy the ISO file to either a DVD disk or to a USB drive. When you choose this, you get to select some of these. Now, you can see that it lets you include the network connection settings and the hardware drivers from this particular computer. So it's going to be unique to this computer. You won't have any problem locating the server if you have to do that, which I occasionally had trouble on my Windows Home server because it didn't store these drivers, and I had to work around that. But this one lets you find the file on your server if you need to. And once you've picked where you're going to write it to, now I've selected on a ISO file, and this is where I'm going to write that file. And click Next, and it will say what we're going to do. We're going to create it with these features into this ISO file and create it. And then, as I said, I will generally create a disk drive with that ISO, which now is bootable. If I lose disk drive, which I have, I can restore from that file. Now that recovery media has a full Windows recovery environment on it, so that you can do other corrections from that. If you need to just redo your boot whatever they call it, boot sequence on the computer, you could use this instead of getting a recovery media that you made through Windows. Yes. Oh, and I'll mention one thing about it. The first time I tried this, and you should try it, not maybe going through and actually doing the restore, but at least getting up to the point where you can do the restore. I thought, well, okay, it's not working. It takes about 2 full minutes or more to actually get to the point where you can use this recovery media. I'm not really sure what it's doing, but it does take a while. Just have some patience, and it will work. It saved my bacon several times, just as Mark's recovery has saved his. And that's my last slide. So let me stop sharing here and ask if you have any questions right now.
We'll check with Judy on that. And as I said, I've learned something new today, and especially when you said free and works with Linux.
Yes, how about that? I thought of you when you said that, but thank you for such a comprehensive list of what to think about when you are, getting your program all together or even choosing a program. And I do have some questions, but I'm going to seg over to John so we can get Bill on.
Okay. Terrific day. We're now going to switch. We had Don tell us about a Veeam program that I am going to check out. And now we're going to switch to Bill James, who's our Windows guy. And he's going to talk about his backup method with OneDrive. And Bill's been with us a lot from Oklahoma and does all of our home automation. So Bill, take it over.
Thank you, John. I feel like the odd man out here today because I haven't done a conventional backup in years. Primarily using OneDrive for both backup and synchronization. So my presentation basically is going to discuss setting up OneDrive and then what the benefits are. I'm going to share my screen.
We see it. Okay. All right. Well, the history of OneDrive goes back to the early days of SkyDrive. It's a file hosting service operated by Microsoft that first launched in August 2007. And the purpose of, and what it does, it enables registered users to share and synchronize their files. I have 3 laptops, a desktop, a couple iPads, and all of these have a version of OneDrive on them. And OneDrive offers 5 gigabytes of storage free of charge, with 100 gigabytes and 1 terabyte, and 6 terabyte options available either separately or with Office 365 subscriptions. And as I said earlier, the OneDrive client app adds file synchronization and cloud backup to each device. So, as I was discussing before, is that in the processes is that OneDrive also offers versioning, and it keeps older versions of all files for up to 30 days. I have used this in the past, and it works quite well. It also has a recycle bin where if you have to delete any files, you can still recover those for 30 days. And on business and student accounts, it's up to 93 days. And all of these can be reinstated until they're ultimately purged. It also allows you to download files as zip files. And for single downloads, there's a limit of 15 gigabytes. The total zip file size is limited to 20 gigabytes. You have up to 10,000 files to be included. And it also has files on demand. And on Windows 10, OneDrive utilizes files on demand where files synchronized with OneDrive show up as file listings. They do not require any disk space. As soon as the content of the file is required, the file is downloaded in the background. There are client apps for OneDrive. They have applications for both Android, iOS, Windows 10 and 11, the Xbox 360, and Xbox One, which allows users to browse, view, and organize files stored in their OneDrive cloud storage. OneDrive desktop applications for Microsoft Windows and Mac OS allow users to synchronize their entire OneDrive storage with their computers for offline access and between multiple computers. The OneDrive client for Windows also allows users to fetch the contents of their PCs via a web browser, provided the user has enabled that option. Mac OS users can fetch only from a PC and not vice versa. And it was mentioned before, a lot of people have photos on their cameras, so there is both an Android and iOS versions that allow you to upload those photos to your OneDrive accounts.
So to set up OneDrive, if you're not using a Windows 10 computer, then you just need to download what's referred to as the OneDrive Sync app. And to do that, you just need to either sign in with a Microsoft account. If you don't happen to have one, you can just go to the Start button and search for OneDrive, and then open the app that's already installed on your computer. And then when OneDrive setup starts, you enter your Microsoft account, select Sign In, and of course, if you don't have a Microsoft account, you may need to create one. From there, the key points that you want to keep in mind, there are two screens in OneDrive that are helpful. One is your OneDrive folder screen, which you accept the default folder location for your OneDrive files. And if you want to change that folder location, you can select Change. And it would be the best time while you're setting up to do this at this point. And the second screen is your All Files Ready and On Demand screen, where you'll see how files are marked to show them as online only, local available, or always available. Files on Demand help you access all your files in the OneDrive without having to download all of them and use storage space on your Windows device. And then once you've made your selections, you just do Next. And then you're all set. And what you will see in your File Explorer is your OneDrive folder, and then that will list all the files that you have storage in the cloud. And if you look here, you'll see where it says status, and it gives a little icon to show which files are in cloud storage or which ones are downloaded to your local drive, or your local computer, rather. You can see and manage your OneDrive files by clicking on the little icon. It's either white or blue. And once you do that, anytime you want to make change to any of those folders that you sync on your computer, you just right click on that cloud icon on the taskbar in the notification area, and it will provide you information on what's currently happening with OneDrive. It also shows you other information in your account. Um, and then once you've had your OneDrive set up successfully, you can now time to back up your files. You want to open your File Explorer, click on the OneDrive, and then you'll see it will be empty, so you can add files just by copying from anywhere and paste them into the appropriate folder. And when the files are copied to it, you can access them online anywhere and share them with others. OneDrive will sync only folders on the drive formatted with the NTFS file system, or better known as the new technology, be more specific, the new technology file system. It's a file system used by the operating system to identify how files are stored, named, and organized on your hard drive or solid state drive, USB stick, etc. But keep in mind that some portable storage, such as USB drives or some solid state memory drives, use a different file system. They won't sync with OneDrive. So if you're buying a external drive, you want to make sure that it is formatted in the NTFS file system. And then the next thing you want to do, you want to go into your Windows settings and turn on backup files under the backup. There you want to select OneDrive, the cloud icon in the notification area on the far right of your taskbar. You might need to click the show hidden icon arrow to show the hidden icon buttons in case the cloud doesn't show there in your notification area. And then if it doesn't appear, then you might want to just select Start, type OneDrive, and then to get it running again. From there, you want to select OneDrive Help Settings icon Help. And as you can see here, it says Open your OneDrive. And then you select the Backup tab. And on the Backup tab, you can, under the Important PC folders, you can select Manage Backup. Just follow the instructions to back up your documents, pictures, desktop folders. And it's no matter what default setting you choose, you can still select the same location you want each time you save a file. So even though the default folder is maybe OneDrive, it doesn't prevent you from also selecting a Save As to this PC, or pick another folder to save a file to. But one thing you have to keep in mind, if you stop protecting a folder, and that's a folder on your PC, will suddenly look empty. And this is because the desktop documents and pictures folders exist both under this PC and OneDrive, which might make them easy to mix up. So once you stop protecting a folder, existing files stay in OneDrive, and then any new files will be saved to your. And you can always, again, choose where you want to save the file that you create. Your computer settings include default save locations for your desktop, documents, and pictures file. During the Windows 10 setup, you may have seen a message back up your files with OneDrive screen telling you about the benefits of saving your files to OneDrive. But you may elect not to do that. But whether you save by default to your computer or to OneDrive, all your files are available on your PC. The OneDrive app is built into Windows 10. It synchronizes your files between OneDrive and your computer, so they're backed up, protected, and available on any device. You can use, as I said earlier, the file on demand to free up space or make sure files or folders are always available on your device when you're offline. I have one computer that has a very small hard drive. It's like a 256 solid state, and I keep no files locally on that computer. I totally rely on using the cloud storage. And then when I want to use that machine, I just go there and download it to the local machine and make whatever edits I want, and then save it back. And if I should go and pick up another laptop or something, I can go and revisit that file if I need to. So so it's very easy to move between folders on your PC and a folder on OneDrive just by using File Explorer. One of the things you want to do, you can select folders that you wish to back up. And as you see here, there's a desktop documents and photos. And there's a little blue button that's got it. You just click on that and you're really essentially done. If you don't have access to your devices, you can access them from OneDrive.com online. So, say for instance, if I'm traveling somewhere and I don't have access to my files, to a computer, I can use my phone for one thing and just go to this particular site, and I can then view my documents uh, online. So another feature about a OneDrive, it has something called Personal Vault, and it protects your area in OneDrive where you can store your most important files and photos without sacrificing the convenience of anywhere access. It has strong authentication. It's a second step verification. You can use fingerprint, face, pen, or you can send a code via your email. Unfortunately, it's not available for Mac OS. So, in summary, the thing that I really like about OneDrive is that I can restore my data by just entering my Microsoft account. And I'll tell you a little story is that I bought 3 different computers over the past 2 years. And each one of them, I did not have to go through a lengthy restore point. All I did was just start the machine up, go through the prompts, enter my Microsoft account, and I had all my data and all my files on that machine with no effort whatsoever. So I think that is one of the biggest benefits, because I really believe that this is a no-funds application, and it's really not that expensive. You think about it in terms that if you elect to go with Office 365, you get all the Office products plus 6 terabytes of storage for each user. And in my mind, that's about on par with some of the prices that you're paying for iDrive and some of the other ones that you are using that are paid for. I'm not including the ones that free product that Don mentioned earlier. But you can store several different kinds of files on OneDrive and then access them from your Windows PC or mobile devices. Anyone who is an owner of a Microsoft account can use it free within 5 gigabytes of storage. Enables you to be able to share your files with ease. Other people can visit your shared files with a link. You have file on demand syncing. OneDrive enables you to work closely with other Microsoft Office applications. And you can launch one of these applications. You'll see a list of the recent documents, including those saved on OneDrive. So for me, that's my backup and sync solution. John, back to you.
Thank you so much. This gives us a number of different options. A great start with Judy's why, and then Mark's presentation. Judy, we're going to turn it over to you now for the collection of questions, and then after we've done, then we'll do the open.
I can always get these questions answered via email and send the answers out to everybody. I'd rather have people share what they are using that we haven't talked about today. I've gotten several questions about, what do people recommend for cloud and blah, 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 blah. So let's try that and see if we have anybody that's willing to tell us what they absolutely love.
Go down to your reactions, hit your raise hand, and then share with us some of the stuff that you use that might make me interested in checking out something else.
Saul, you're on.
Hi, I won't tell you what I use because it violates a couple of the criteria that were excellent criteria in this presentation of being free or easy to use. And that's because I pay for what I use and it's not easy to use, and I do it for another reason. But I wanted to piggyback on something Mark brought up, which was the free file sync. I have used that for a different purpose, not exactly backup. And I just wanted to mention that it will let you create a Windows Task Manager task, so you could schedule it and have it automatically do it. Like I have it set for somebody else's use at midnight every night during the week, Monday to Friday. So it's set it and forget it. And it does create logs. And I encourage anybody using that to check the logs to make sure it's actually working. So, and then in addition to that, we also do a cloud sync because that's just being used locally.
Thanks. And many of us use paid products also, so it's not limited to just free ones. Jerry, you're on.
Thank you. I'll drop my hand here.
Thank you.
Just a plug for, of course, everybody, the best thing to use is whatever one is using. Okay, whatever you're using is best. But I love Acronis. I've been using Acronis for years, and I love it. Now, I will say one quick thing. I don't do. Everybody here has talked about backing up this file because it changed and putting this out in OneDrive. But first of all, let me start over. I have a rule. I never store a single byte of my data in the cloud anymore. That's just me. I'm paranoid from years of security work, just like I don't have a Facebook account and never will. That's just me. Now, but that means I can't use Google Drive or OneDrive. I have 10 attached external drives to this computer that I'm using right now. It's a Dell laptop. And I do round robin, just like everybody said. That's right. I agree. You go round robin. And so at any point in time, I have 8, I back up weekly. And I use Acronis, and I never fiddle with do this, do that, what changed it didn't. I just do a complete, as somebody mentioned, a complete backup of my system once a week. That way that backup is available. If I lose my drive, I just put my USB in there and put in drive in and boot up. So, and I've tested that. I've given presentations on backups before, and it went to the local group. Actually, I gave one to Ray Baxter's group, Judy, about a month and a half ago. But anyway, I love Acronis. I do external backups to USB attached drives, and I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to start putting, about every 6 months, I'm going to do a backup and take the drive off site and put it in my safe deposit box. Because what you've all mentioned is absolutely true. You do not want to look at the ashes of your computer and see around it the ashes of your hard drives that your backups on. So anyway, and testing it, the one last thing I'll say, if you get into this for the first time, test it. You don't want to find out when you need that backup because something happened. You don't want to find out it's corrupted or the software doesn't work the way you think it did, and you can't restore. So anyway, thank you, Judy.
Thank you so much for talking about it.
Oh, I'm sorry, Judy. I have one more question.
Tom?
Somebody that spoke, and I can't remember which presenter, and I apologize, talked about something called Calibrate, a book cataloging system. I really like to have a pointer to that. That sounds great. I can't remember who mentioned that. But
That was Mark.
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you, Mark.
And I'll send it out in the follow-up material.
Okay.
And thank you for talking about Acronis. I was hoping that somebody would speak up about it, or somebody had gotten in touch and said, I'd like to give a little mini presentation about it.
Well, I would have been glad.
But Jean Barlow is still giving everybody in the user group community half price on everything. And as in my slides, I did have the 2 prices for their new product, $25 for 1 license, $40 for 3. But he's the first person in the whole free world that he's the father of user groups that gave presentations to groups. And he's no longer doing that, but he still is giving us a discount. And we all thank him very much for that. Over to you, Gabe.
Hi, I just wanted to recommend a related product, going back to the repeated advice that sooner or later every hard drive will fail. For years, I've been running a product called Hard Drive Sentinel, which runs all the time and gives me a real-time readout into the health of my storage, whether it's rotating memory or SSD solid state memory. And this has saved my bacon a couple of times, because it would give an early warning of a drive that's failing. And if you neglect it, it gives you a doomsday countdown clock telling you how the health of your drive is deteriorating, which gets more and more scary until you act to do something about it. If you just Google Hard Drive Sentinel, you will find it. And one of the things that I love about it is that the developer, who's somewhere in Europe, I can't remember which country, does the best product support of any vendor I've ever dealt with. When I ask a question, I often get back a couple of paragraphs in a good way, explaining the context of my question and giving me a very detailed and useful and valuable answer. So just Google Hard Drive Sentinel. I'll put the URL in the chat, and it's a bargain. I've told him he doesn't charge enough for it. You can buy 1 copy, or you can buy, I think, a 5 bundle package for maybe $40 or $50, one-time, lifetime license. and it's just a great tool. And it sits there quietly until it needs to tell you about something, and then it tells you right when you need to know about it. So highly recommended.
And back in the day, as things happen, Gabe got APCUG members a discount on that. And how about getting in touch with him again and say, talk about, we had this backup meeting and you talked about the product. Would he be interested in giving APCUG folks another discount?
Sure, I'll do that, even though I think the non-discounted price is way too low for the value.
Yeah.
But he insists that that's what he likes to do. And as you said, APCUG got a nice discount. I'll nudge him and see what he says.
And you user groupies love discounts. Okay, I'm going to sit here for a while because I do not see any hands raised. We have over 100 people here. There have got to be folks out there who use backup programs that will please share with us what they are using. Robert, you're on. Thank you so much.
Hi there. Not sure if anyone mentioned it, but if you're in the Apple world and you use a Mac, the Mac has a free built-in program called Time Machine, which I have found very, very useful in the past. And not only does it allow you to go back to any specific version you're looking for, but it does differential backups as well as full system backups if you need to, for example, get a new computer and you need to transfer the last version of your system to your new computer. It's pretty much set it and forget it, and it's free. So for those of you that have Macs, I would highly recommend it.
And I thank you for putting that in the chat box because I got a question about that. She sent me an email and put it in the chat box. I just copied and pasted your answer and sent it to her. And she says, thank you to you then. She thanked me, but no, thank you to you.
Yeah, and you don't have to, for example, set it and make it work. It does it both hourly, daily, and weekly. And then it deletes the hourlies after a day and the dailies after a week, so that you are left with just weekly backups that contain every hourly change that has happened throughout that week. And then I remember, Judy, you mentioned about which ones are that you should not let it go forever, for example. What Time Machine does is if it fills up, if your hard drive fills up, for example, it will notify you that your hard drive is filled up and it intends to delete the earliest backup. And is this okay with you? And then you say, yeah, sure, go ahead and delete it. It's a couple of years old anyway, and you're fine. So anyway, bottom line is I recommend it if you have a Mac.
Thank you so much. And on the Windows built-in backup, I took their default, and my external hard drive was filled within a couple of months. And I went, where did I go wrong? Well, stop and smell the roses and read and make your decision and make the correct one for sure. Thank you. You want to lower your hand, please? And we are over to Steve Parker.
Hi, there is one other backup method that's not been mentioned at all, and that is cloning. Yeah, what you can do is, or what I used to do anyway, I didn't bother with imaging. I always bought 2 hard drives. One I used and the other was my backup. And what I used to do, once I got it set up the way I wanted it, I would then clone it to the other drive that was the same type of drive, same size and everything else. And then that way you didn't need any other software to do it. You just cloned it. If you changed a lot every day, then you could clone it every day if you wanted to. But I usually cloned it about once every month or so.
Thank you.
And it was a good idea. Let's see, it would have been about 25 years ago. Our house was broken into, and my computer and all the equipment was all stolen. Lost about 25,000 bucks worth of stuff. Fortunately, I had clones of all my drives, so I didn't lose any data, but I sure lost a hell of a lot of hardware.
Yuck. Robert, Mac guy, I have a question. Where does your time machine backup go? Is it on the same hard drive that you're backing up?
No, you plug in an external, either, WD or Seagate or whatever. You attach that hard drive via USB, like you explained, and that's it. You set it and forget it. And the time machine is essentially a piece of software on your computer, and there's a little icon that sits on your desktop, and it asks you, do you want to put the backups on your Western Digital or Seagate, whatever you have connected, and you say yes, and that's the end of it. That's the last thing that you do.
Thank you. John Kennedy.
Yep. To get equal times, since Bob brought it up, we'll mention that for the Linux users, we have an identical program that's very similar called Time Shift, and does the same thing as Time Machine. And that works out great because it's just backing up your system on the regular basis, and then gets rid of things to clean up. Also, we have programs that will just back up your software so that you can copy that, back that up to external drive and then just restore. Because in the Linux world, we can restore a Linux operating system very, very quickly. I'd also like to mention on Steve's, I have a member in our club that only does clone. He doesn't worry about backing up much of anything else. And what he does is he clones the drive, switches it out so he can test it, and then uses it. So he starts with drive 1, clones it to 2, puts 2 into the computer, make sure it works, and then he puts 1 up on the shelf, uses the 2 for a long time, then he clones 2 to 1 to make it up to date, switches it out so he can test it to make sure it works, and then he uses 1 again, and 2 goes back up on the secure place.
Do exactly the same thing, only with 3 drives instead of 2.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know who's on first. Tom, you got your hand raised.
Yeah, the question about the time machine. Originally, Apple would sell what was called a time capsule, and this is a number of years ago. It came with a Wi-Fi router in it and a hard drive, at that time 3 terabyte, and that was what I typically used. And then I got notes from several people saying that the time capsules were no longer being manufactured by Apple, and that I could expect them to die any day. And so what I did was I went out and found a Raspberry Pi and set it up as a time machine. And so that is now on my wired network. So I have, and actually the time capsule hasn't failed. So the current versions of Apple software will allow you to produce a time machine backup on, I've got it backed up to 3 different external hard drives. And if that isn't enough, you can always get Carbon Copy Cloner, which used to clone. It doesn't anymore, but it still is a usable backup. And I do mine at night. I just tell the computer to turn on, start the backup, turn off, and then just sit there and wait for me.
Thank you so much for that. And John Kennedy, did you take his name down for your list for our future Linux workshop we're having, where we're going to be talking about how you use your Raspberry Pi?
No, but
well, you should.
You just did.
No, but there'll be different people there.
John, while I'm still on here, I have a question for you. What was the name of the unit? It was time what for the Unix machines?
Time Shift.
Time Shift. Okay. Thank you.
Probably based very similar to Time Machine. It looks acts the same.
Will that run under Ubuntu?
Yes. Just
Okay.
have to download it. It comes automatic with Mint, but you can download it.
Okay, thank you.
And you other Linux people that were here, last Wednesday, we talked about talking about backup until this Wednesday. So I'm still waiting for more of that. George, you're on.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
I use Macrium Reflex, and I don't do the incremental. I just do a full, but I pay for it anyway. I'd like to know, because these are getting kind of big, these backups. If I was ever going to restore this computer, I would never restore the Windows, particularly if it got infected or something like that. So it's okay for a hard drive crash, but to restore the whole image. But if I wanted to restore after a ransomware or something like that, I would definitely reinstall Windows and then pick the files I want to get. So I don't really need the whole Windows image part of it, and I want to exclude the Windows, but I want to include the app data, that gets hidden inside Windows and things like that. So any suggestions on how easy that is? I know, was it Thomas I don't forget who gave the first presentation, but he had mentioned using Macrium Reflex, and we've promoted that one.
Can I jump in on that one?
Yeah.
So I can tell you at work, one of the big reasons we use Macrium is if our server crashed for some reason, we have to be back up really quickly. We're losing money every second that we're down. So I would agree that if a laptop had a failure, or especially a malware hit, I would reinstall Windows. But on the servers, we've got to get them back up really quickly, and that's where Macrium comes in really useful. And we also use them on laptops to clone the laptop. So what often happens to me is, we just did this last year, we replaced, for one of our divisions, we replaced all 11 laptops. Well, what we did when we got this big pile of 11 laptops in, I set up one of them just exactly the way I wanted it, and then just used Macrium to clone them from one to the next.
Yeah, I've used it to upgrade from a rotary hard drive to an SSD, and so I just copied everything up off the rotary using Macrium Reflex back onto the SSD drive.
Yeah, and I just did that last week, as a matter of fact. We were upgrading some, so yeah, that's a great use for it.
But is it easy to exclude pieces that you like? I don't want the whole of Windows backed up every time, in my view. Do you do any exclusions of areas?
Can I answer that?
Yeah, go ahead.
If you watch Ask Leo Notenboom, he covers that in detail, and he does a fantastic job of it. The best way of doing that is use Macrium Reflex to back up the whole thing. Then you don't have to worry, oh, gee, I should have had this bit or this bit or that bit. If you've got the whole thing, you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
If you're just trying to back up this part and that, you're always going to forget something.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, Steve, would you send me a link to the article that you're talking about?
Or put it in the chat and we can grab it now.
Yeah, I have to find it first.
Later, Steve, on your own time. And I'll just add it to my follow-up email. Richard Bradford from Australia, you're on.
Yeah, just a comment about doing image backups and restores. I've used copying from hard drive to an SSD. The SSDs normally come in at about 480 gig, whereas the hard drive's 500. To reduce the partitions down, so you can then use an image backup, I've used another utility called Niobe Partition Editor. So I can actually reduce the partitions down slightly in size on the 500 gig drive. So then when I do an image backup, it will restore to the 480 gig solid state drive. if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Stunned silence.
Did you really say 500 gig?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
is the
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm thinking terabyte in my head,
Yeah,
thinking,
no.
oh my God, I don't believe it.
half a
That's what you
terabyte.
said. No, thank you.
But the solid state drives usually only come in about 480 gig, not 500 gigs. So you need to bring the partitions down slightly when you do the image. Otherwise, the restore doesn't behave itself very well. And so I found this other utility called Niobe Partition Editor. It's another free utility, but it works very well in being able to slightly resize and move the partitions around. Stunned silence. Has my accent confused you?
Oh, it's
No,
fine.
it must be the middle of the night down there, right? What time is it down there, Richard? Guess you can't hear me.
Okay.
Richard, what time is it?
Here it's 5:15, 5:17 a.m.
Tomorrow.
It is already the 31st here, yes.
Well, then I hope you're definitely going to be backing up today. You can beat us all to it.
Yes, yes, someone beat me to the punch on that. I frequently use that free file sync. So I use that to back up to a network attached drive. And then I've got two other computers, then I synchronize back to that network drive. So I've got all three computers with the same file sets on them.
By the way,
Works well.
Excuse me, you can get 2 terabyte SSDs now. I've got several 1 terabytes and a couple of 2 terabyte NVMe. So the high you can get SSD storage at large volumes.
Mark, you had your hand raised. Did you take it down? Or was that a figment of my imagination?
I think it was a figment of your imagination.
Thank you so much. Do you ever use any of those paper towel rolls, or is that not a paper towel holder?
That's addressed at me?
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm looking behind you. I just always have wondered. That's okay.
Yeah, I spill stuff all the time. So yes, they get used.
Okay, Kevin, you're on.
Yes, just two things. One for, I think it was Mark, when he was talking about all of the online capabilities of, the myriad cloud storage options we have. I wonder about this every now and then because of what I do. And how do we know for sure? I mean, I can't imagine this being any other way, but does he have any insight or information about, do all of these vendors, Microsoft, Google, Norton, that provide cloud storage, do they have multiple data centers literally throughout the country and or the world, where if California falls into the ocean or the wildfires in Colorado take over a data center, they actually have other locations where the data is there. Our 500 gigabytes of pictures is safe and sound.
Well, they certainly do have multiple data centers, but none of them, just for the consumer level file service, guarantee that they won't lose your files. But if you use them for backup, if you're counting on that, in my case, I use OneDrive, that OneDrive is not going to have a catastrophic failure on the same day that my computer has a catastrophic failure. So it's still possible that either one of those could happen, but you're just hoping they won't happen at the same time, which is a pretty good bet. So because that's how my wife does her backups is to OneDrive. And so, I feel pretty comfortable with that because I don't know that they've ever lost any files. Perhaps they have, but the chances of that happening the same time that her hard drive dies is pretty remote.
Thank you. I do, have an idea of what RAID storage is, and I'm sure that they have some degree of redundancy within the server, the single server they're using for, like my particular set of data. But I was just curious about that. And secondly, I am loving the speed, the improvement in speed of machines when we use these solid state drives. But does anybody have any good information about the true longevity of the solid state drives? I know initially there were some failures and things, and I know they're reserving more space within each solid state drive for recovering from minor little bits and bytes going bad. But does anybody have any decent, for lack of a better word, evidence that the solid state drives we're buying today or that we bought last year are going to have some, beyond 2 or 3 or 4 years longevity? I've seen hard drives, just like somebody else mentioned, I've seen hard drives break down within the 1-year warranty period. And I've seen hard drives from old computers last, like 10 real years. And I'm just very curious if anybody has any info on that solid state
There's
stuff.
a ton and a half of information current as we speak out on, if you Google it, the How To Geeks and the Make Use Of, they've been putting out stuff like that your SSD drive might not last forever. Bill, do you want to address the OneDrive and losing files, since we talked about this last night?
Well, from my experience, I have not lost any files in the 5 or 6 years that I've been using. Well, I've used OneDrive for longer than that, and I haven't lost any files during that period of time. And I exclusively use OneDrive for my backup as well as my synchronization. I just really feel comfortable with it. It doesn't seem to be a real issue. I don't have to, I mean, it's like set and forget. I don't have to mess with it, and that's what I like. I know people have concerns about the cloud, but I really don't. And to answer Kevin's question about the server farms, we have a Google server farm that's sort of north of Oklahoma City in a small town called Pryor. And I think that's one of several all over the world.
Oh, they have
And
many,
it's a
many,
huge place that, it looks like a prison. You can't, I mean, it takes all kinds of credentials to get into that place. So, I don't know. It's just, I just feel really secure with using cloud storage. And I use Google Drive as well, and I also use Dropbox. So I have kind of a multiple tier of storage. And the thing I concern myself most is my pictures. And I have pictures that go back for 10, 25 years, and I put them on a computer. And then when I went to the cloud storage, I moved all those pictures there, and fortunately, I still have them. And I've changed computers over the years, and I still am able to access my pictures either on my computer or on my phone. It doesn't matter whichever device I have handy.
It's our contention with OneDrive, as with Windows security program, that there's so many people out there that don't like Microsoft already, that if anything happened to people's files and or the security on their computer, that people would run away so fast from Microsoft. It would absolutely be incredible. And they don't want that to happen. So I think they have to be doing an excellent job just because of their reputation. Over to John.
Commenting on Bill part right now, what bothers me is all of his eggs in one basket. And since, yes, you say that Microsoft is going to really, really do this, but we were told today that even Microsoft OneDrive has a comment in his TOS that says, sorry. So, to me, that means they're not doing enough if they still put that TOS in there. But I would just be worried for Bill with all of his pictures in one spot.
But I have them on multiple computers.
Right, and he backs up to 3 different places.
Okay, because he said nothing's on his computer, so I'm doing it. Okay, jumping back since somebody else is doing it. With the Linux world backup, there are programs that we use that come within Linux. And a lot of the stuff can be done in command line. There's a program called rsync, which sync everything up, that is used to back up to external drives. And then there's graphical user interfaces, the GUI ones, that are using rsync, but it's easier, like we've done, pick your source, pick your destination, pick your time, and it does the backups that same way. So every option that there is for the other worlds, the Linux world has it. Currently, I'm using the pCloud. I have dropped my iDrive because iDrive has told me that they have no intentions in the immediate future to create a desktop application for Linux that Windows has and Mac has. And I can't do my sync as well. I always have to download from the cloud to my computer, open it up, work on it, save it, upload it back to iDrive. There is no easy syncing that Linux can do. So I'm saying, I'm sorry, but you've said you don't have any interest in Linux. I don't have an interest in you. So pCloud has really worked well for me because I both have backup and syncing. Some of my folders are in the backup and I get them off of my regular computer, and some of them are in syncing. All my presentations are in the sync part. So whatever computer I can go to, I can access my presentations, work on them, just opening them up from there and then hit the save. So that does it really well for me.
How much is pCloud?
pCloud is going to be more expensive than iDrive because my understanding from what I'm reading, iDrive is desperate to keep people. So the pricing that you saw earlier from Mark, they just are moving it up to $79, but they're going to give you 5 terabyte.
No.
I don't need 5 terabyte. I don't even need the 2 terabyte that I have right now. What I need is the easy syncing that they're not going to give me.
Right.
So pCloud is, I think, 500 gigabytes for 49 and 2 terabytes for 99.
That's just a special. Mark and I both show the same $59. That's a special for the first year. It has been $79 for quite a while. Stacy got a first year for $13.95.
Well, but I'll have to say that I've been paying $69.
69, okay.
For a couple of years, and they just said it's going to go up. But for the $10, you get, move from 2 to 5. Well, that's pretty good. But if it doesn't have what you need, yeah.
Yeah, so it's not really, then that's a chump change sale price too, $59. That's crummy as far as I'm concerned, since she got it for such a low rate. Gabe, what do you use to back up?
Well, actually, one of the questions that I have is, as was mentioned, I've been using on Windows 10, I've been using the Windows 7 service to create an image backup. And every once in a while, I get a strange, frustrating message that the backup failed, saying backup failed to get an exclusive lock on the EFI system partition. This may happen if another application is using files on the ESP. Backup is scheduled at 3 o'clock in the morning when nobody's doing anything on the computer. And if I rerun it, it usually works. And this is an intermittent failure. It might happen once or twice in a week. And 3 a.m. is the same, I think, every day. And I'm not at the computer at 3 a.m. So I'm puzzled by what causes that strange occasional problem with the image backup. And as I said, all I do is rerun it. And it says, okay, it's done. It's perfect. And the other thing I wanted to ask about is encryption on cloud backups. I don't think anybody mentioned any potential risks Well, people did mention risks of storing data in the cloud. Encryption is an obvious antidote to that. And so my question is, out of the backup systems that have been mentioned, do they all by default do automatic encryption of any data that's stored in the cloud?
Can I take that one?
Mhm.
So I don't think any of them actually, Google Drive, OneDrive, and Dropbox, I don't think, at least in the free versions, they transmit it encrypted, but they don't store it on their own servers encrypted. And it's one of the reasons I'm looking at pCloud, is that one of the things they say is the data is actually stored encrypted on their servers and they can't get to it. So that's one of the things that interests me.
Cool. Renee. Unmute, please. Thank
Yeah,
you.
there we go. Sorry, I missed this. I have a 2 terabyte Seagate drive that came with a Acronis for backup.
Hmm.
And I've never had a problem with it, but today, while I'm online here, I tried to go to my backup and it comes up, it's not finding the drive. It says this product requires at least 1 Seagate drive. And you have to upgrade to the latest unrestricted version of Acronis. I'm wondering, is this because I'm online?
Jerry Crow, can you answer that?
Well, from what he said, if you got it free with a Seagate drive, I suspect my surmise would be that it's a modified version of Acronis that will only work if there's a Seagate drive attached to the system. I've never heard of that, but that sounds like what you described.
Yeah, it is, and it has worked fine. But what I'm saying is, because this is the first time I tried it while I'm online with you guys, and I'm getting this message and it's not finding the drive.
Sorry, I have no idea on that.
Is your built-in drive a Seagate?
No.
Do you have an external Seagate?
Yes, that's how
Is
I
it
back
plugged
up.
in now?
Yes.
Can you get it? Can you use File Explorer to get out there and look at it? Is it live?
I believe it is. I have yeah, I have my no, that's gigabytes. So no, it's not finding it.
Okay, so the system isn't finding it. So
Yeah, it must be because I'm online.
That could be.
Could you unplug it and plug it back in?
No, I didn't.
The old tried and true.
Yeah.
Just for grins.
Well, it makes the noise.
Yeah, I heard it.
Yeah. Did you? Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know if it'll.
Well, try it and raise your hand again and let us know if it works or not, okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I did have Judy up. My hand was up.
I have a response for Gabe.
Okay.
Windows runs by default maintenance tasks at 2 a.m. daily. Some days, some tasks may take longer and could hold a file open. I back up every day at 2:30 a.m. to iDrive, but it goes very quickly. So Gabe, you might want to change the time to 4 a.m. just for grins.
Fascinating. I will do that. When you mentioned the 2 o'clock chores taking a long time, that was what I had decided to do. Switch it to 4 o'clock. As far as I'm concerned, I'm asleep. So there's no difference between 3 and 4 in the morning. So
How
thank
true.
you. I will try that.
Over to Jerry again.
I was just going to make a quick comment regarding the age of backup software. Before I used Acronis, I've been using Acronis for, I don't know, a decade at least, probably. But before that, I used V2I Protector, if any of you remember that. That was produced by a company that was bought out by, what's the name of the company that bought them? But anyway, the Acronis, and I'm reasonably confident that most contemporary backup products create a backup which will allow you to go in with File Explorer and look at the files on the backup. Acronis certainly does that. And it doesn't require Acronis to be running or anything. Now, it could be there's a backup service running that I don't know about. But when I make a backup with Acronis, I can just get in there with File Explorer and look at it. And look at that file, look at this file. But now I've got V2I Protector backups from 12, 13 years ago. I don't know what I'm going to do. I've still got the software. I'll probably install it on a virtual machine because I'd like to get to those old V2I Protector backups. And because V2I Protector had a separate program you had to run to look at their backups like it was you were using File Explorer. Okay, I've talked long enough. Go on, Judy. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Someday I'm going to grab you for a presentation, so come up with something you want to do.
Okay.
Thank you so much. You know where I live, so to speak. We're going to have Andy, Tony, Gary, and Dale, and then we're out of here. If you have any more questions, put them in the chat box, please. So I have them that I can send to the appropriate person. And so if it's for Don or Mark or Bill, put their name first, and then I'll know who to direct it to. Andy, you're on.
Hi. I'm kind of frugal in that, yeah, free is good, but I'm also real skeptical because I started playing around with these little magic boxes, and I dealt with companies like Software Publishing for Harvard Graphics.
Oh.
There was a company called WordPerfect, and there was another one that did spreadsheets. I think it was called Quattro. And yeah, and so now you move forward, and yes, I've used Acronis, and yes, I've used Macrium and others for making images. But outside of being old, I'm kind of skeptical. I've seen software companies come and go. Applications that I used to use are no longer. I've been in a position where I wanted a file, but I didn't have internet access. Not only did the computer go down, but I lost internet access too. So I couldn't restore anything. So my tried and true for safeguarding my data, and again, keeping in mind, if the computer pukes, which it has, I really don't care about restoring an old Windows because I'm going to reinstall a new copy anyway. Windows, Linux, it doesn't matter. So I use an old batch file with Windows Scheduler or with a Linux script with a cron job and just copy it to an external drive. Now, if I want a file or all my files, I can go to one of multiple external hard drives. I'm not reliant on the internet, and I don't have to mount an image backup and wait for that. Hopefully I have the right software that's going to open up that image and then go through and try to find the file. I already know it's a file that was there last week in this folder, and I just go over to my external drive and I can copy it. So as far as the earlier comments, gentlemen, with the Acronis backup for Seagate, I've seen that. I've had the same issue. Acronis puts out or makes available, there's a version for Western Digital drives, a version for Seagate drives. But if you try to restore and you don't have one of those drives in the system, it's going to laugh and it's going to say, sorry, you have the wrong one. Come back and pay us for something. So that's it.
You're on, Tony.
Thanks, Judy. I am new to this, so be gentle with me. All the chat files and information we got during the chat periods, would that be available to us? Are you sending it or we can take it down?
Everybody receives all of the presentations. the questions and answers from the chat box
Mhm.
and a link to the YouTube recording.
So you will send that to us, is that right?
I will send it to all attendees, and please don't send me an email in 3 days and say you haven't received it, because you're not going to receive it until probably way the end of next week.
That's a new month. Thank you.
That's okay. At least I'll bypass April Fool's Day.
Ooh, great job. Great job. Thanks.
Gary.
Thank you, Judy. I used to use Acronis, but then they went to subscription, I believe. So then I changed to Macrium. So my question has to do with doing a image backup and then also using free file sync. I've got 4 physical hard drives. And if I do a backup with Macrium to my external hard drive, so I've got 4 folders with each having a backup. Then if I want to use the free file sync, I'm a little confused there. Do I run free file sync for each physical hard drive, and then it will back up or copy those changed files to that external hard drive? And then if I have to restore my physical hard drive, the Macrium backup back to, say, my computer, will free file sync automatically then just transfer everything back over, or do I have to do some other steps in between? I'm a little confused as the process.
Okay, so I'll try that one. So I would use Macrium just to back up the hard drive that has Windows on it, and I don't keep my data on that same drive. So then I would use free file sync to back up the drive or drives that have data on them. So if you ever had to do a complete restore on a brand new set of hard drives, you'd back up, you'd do a restore in Macrium first to put Windows back on there. And then I would probably set it up so that there was a separate free file sync job for each drive if you had multiple drives that had data on them.
Well, I put all my data on the D drive and the C drive, the D drive and the E drive and the F drive. I got all my programs on the C drive, and I do an image of everything just because, you know, I don't know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So are you saying that I don't need to do a free file sync for all the other drives? Just the data drive? I mean,
and you're backing those up in Macrium as well?
Yeah, everything, all 4.
Well, then that should be all you need. But that takes a lot of time. Assuming you got a fair amount of data, that's going to take a lot of time. So yeah, so I back up my C drive every 6 months, a couple of times a year, and then I use the equivalent of free file sync every week, and that goes really quick.
Do you set up free file sync for each individual physical hard drive?
I think you have to. I don't know. Maybe there's a way to have it do multiple drives, but I think you have to.
No, that's fine. I just wasn't sure yet how to do it. I haven't tried it yet, but thanks. I'll give it a shot. It sounds like a good in-between thing to do.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
And Gary, the next time we see you, let us know how that worked out. Do you do it for one each for all 4, or you figured a way how to do it all at the same time? Thank you so much. Over to Dale.
I'll give it a shot. Thank you.
My question's sort of simple. I just wanted to know, when you say it's going to back up automatically at 4 or 2:30 or whatever, do you have to leave your computer on, or does it remotely turn it on? And
you leave your computer on. But see, I don't turn mine off until it says, hey, lady, you don't have much memory left.
Memory or battery?
Memory.
Oh. Okay, I was just wondering if it had remote access somehow to turn that on.
Well, thank you. And Renee has an answer for us. Did my unplugging and plugging it back in work? Unmute, please.
Oh, there we go. No, it didn't. What I did is I left the presentation and then it worked. So it doesn't work while you're on Zoom.
Well, that happens with other things too.
Yeah.
And it's possible because it's got files open and you're trying to back up. And if you got files open, you always get a lot of times you can get kickbacks because of that.
I wasn't trying to back it up. I was just trying to get the program to load. It wouldn't even do that.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure why that would happen, because we can run Zoom, and on Saturday we were running Zoom and the photo editing or video editing program. I'm not quite sure why running that wouldn't let you even get to it.
How much RAM do you have?
That's a good question. I forget.
If you only have 8, maybe that's why.
Oh, that's a possibility, I guess.
You need to upgrade to 16.
Yeah. The other question is everything's back up to the 2 terabyte backup drive, but if your system goes down, you have to reboot it. How do you do put your system onto a stick?
Can I try that one?
You're supposed to.
Yes, Mark.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So all of the backup programs, the one that we saw, the Veeam and Macrium Reflect and Acronis and all of those guys will allow you to put in a flash drive, and they will put, it's usually Linux, they will put an operating system and the program on there, so that if you completely lose your hard drive and now you put in just a bare hard drive, you boot from that flash drive, and then it will know how to proceed from there. And that works. The fact that the flash drive is Linux if you're a Windows user, it doesn't matter. It understands Windows. So,
okay. So I just have to find in the Acronis program where it does a boot disk or boot drive.
Yeah, and it'll usually say, it'll call it a recovery flash drive or something like that. And it's a good idea to do that process before you have an emergency.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, Renee, instead of taking the time to look for it, Google it and ask where you can find that in Acronis, and it will tell you right where to go and look for it.
All right.
Steve, you snuck in. Last person to speak before John.
Just wanted to mention that Best Buy has a sale on the 5 terabyte Seagate expansion drives, and ends tomorrow. So I'm gonna go buy and pick a couple of those up tomorrow as well.
How much are they?
$104.
Thank you.
Which is pretty cool.
Okay, John, you're going to have to say the winners' names, because that's so far up my chat box, it's pathetic.
I can send it again. Our winners for our book drawing turns out to be Kevin Beauregard and Yanto Gay Vanderline. Probably not saying that completely right. Yanto Gan Vanderline. They were both here during the time of selection process. I want also to do a jump on to Dale. A number of the programs, if your computer goes to sleep, they are set to wake up the computer. But as Judy said, they have to be turned on. They can't do any backup without it being turned on. I want to thank
or leave it on sleep is what you're saying.
Yeah, I wouldn't leave it on sleep because I don't like sleep. It won't wake up. But the programs is a setting that says wake on, when it's sleep. But I just let my computer run and the monitor goes to sleep because nobody's going to be looking at it. Want to thank everybody for joining us on this fantastic backup. And Judy, you forgot when we started with the 100+ people for everybody to raise their hand and say, I do promise and everything to do backups, because we were going to do that. Today was going to be.
I was hoping they did it along with me when I said it.
Okay, we'll hope that too. It's been great, a lot of information. Please back up. The key is decide what files are important to you, and then figure out a plan that you're going to keep those important files safe. This ends March. Tomorrow's the last day, going out by a lamb for me. And we will skip over Friday or Thursday. No, Friday, April Fools. We'll skip April Fools. And we'll be back next month with a couple more Wednesday workshops. As always, if you have ideas for workshops, we have some, and we've got them scattered over the next few months, but we've got room for more. If you are willing to present or be on a team like today to present, please let Judy know.